Hi, my name is Allen Sabet. I'm the CEO of Mogotes Metals. We're a copper gold exploration company located in the prolific Vicuña District. We're directly adjoining and neighbors to the gigantic Filo del Sol discovery, and the strike projection of that discovery continues straight into our ground package. And we happen to be in a district where multiple large copper discoveries have been made, and we're looking to make one of the same.
Fantastic. Nice to meet you, Alan. Look, we've not met or spoken before. It'd be great to sort of understand your background relevant to what you're trying to do here, please.
Sure, yeah. Well, I've been involved in mineral exploration and prospecting for about 8 years, and in Australia mostly, but also around the world. And put this company together about 2.5 years ago, along with the board of directors, to really look for a giant copper deposit here. Prior to that, I was in different industries. I was in strategy consulting with a company called McKinsey, and prior to that was actually in technology. So I bring a different perspective to things as well, informed by my technical background as well as more higher level strategy thinking.
Ryan, who have you got surrounding you to going to help you out with, as you say, the slightly more sort of technical and mining focus or exploration focus activities?
Yeah, we have a really world-class team, in my opinion. We have a gentleman called Stephen Nano, who is quite experienced in Andean, porphyry, and high sulfidation epithermal geology. Over 20 years of experience in that part of the world. Actually founded and ran a prospect generator focused on that exact model. And prior to that was with Newcrest and with MIM, and has participated in numerous discoveries in his career. So he's driving the technical program design and work there. We've also got on our board of directors as chairman Peter Mullins, who's a gentleman who's worked and lived and done many companies that have been in Argentina, which is where we're situated, and currently chairs 2 other companies that are operating or exploring there, including one called Unico Silver, which is a large silver exploration company. And we also have a man called Phil Williams, who is on our board of directors, who's a very, experienced in the capital market side, on the buy side, as well as actually running companies. So he's running multiple uranium companies in different capacities, primarily ISO Energy, which is a Toronto Stock Exchange listed uranium company, which has got numerous assets around the world. And we also have Anis Sabet, who's my brother, is also on the board of directors, got a lot of experience. Actually, prior to us starting prospecting together, built up the biggest e-commerce company in Australia. And subsequent to that, we've been working on exploration ventures together for the last 8 years. And he's on the board of numerous ASX listed companies as well, and experienced explorationists in his own right.
Okay, so we know Phil well, and you've also got Raymond Janis, I think, as an advisor on there.
That's right.
Who we know and respect as well. Right, so let's talk about the plan here. Okay, you're definitely in the right postcode, right zip code. You mentioned NGX and obviously the BHP-Lundin deal as well. What are you planning to do? Replicate what they've done?
That would be great. Yeah. So we're following in the pathway and standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say. So the Lundin Group have done a great job here of taking a part of this long Andean porphyry belt, which is about 1,000 kilometers, and they've zoomed in on an area where they thought, look, this is prospective, but it's not many discoveries here so far. They zoomed in on that and grabbed a bunch of mineral exploration ground about 2 decades ago. They followed a very rigorous and methodological, way, systematic, and but really ramped up exploration in 2021 when there was a big high-grade discovery at Filo. And since that discovery, have thrown, a lot of new tools at this problem. Deep IP and empty geophysics, which they really only started in the last couple of years. Deep drilling, which also is kind of recent. They were prior to this, really drilling shallow holes, and taking a step back and looking at their whole land package from a kind of high scale, high quality exploration targets that they can expand and find new discoveries. And they've done a really good job at that. We can take those same tools, and we have taken those same tools, but accelerated the timeline substantially, and used modern and systematic exploration tools to see what there is to be found on our ground, which is directly south of their ground.
Okay, well,
so yes, in short, yes, we'd like to replicate and find multiple discoveries, and I think we have a good shot at doing that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So look, you're on the right area, but you've got to go and, as you say, do the hard bit, make a discovery. So these are typically around there, big, long, deep holes, and with that comes a price tag. So how do you deal with that when you start starting off as a small company? You got to be super, super efficient. So talk me through the process.
Yeah. So we have the benefit of also having been here, Matt. We only went public in June last year, but we've been working 2 years prior. The approach was, let's look at what data is there and look at what the white space is for making a discovery. To our surprise, the data there was limited to some rather small, I would say, in terms of the whole land package, rather small areas of exploration. So, and in terms of what data was there, limited surface sampling, limited geological mapping, and there was drilling, but focused on these particular areas. So to mitigate the risk of drilling into nothing, we take a step back and we do a full property-wide systematic program, which involves significant mapping, significant sampling, geophysics across the whole property, electrical and magnetic. And to facilitate that work, which we have done and spent over $10 million doing, we've put in 30 to 40 kilometers of new tracks and rehabilitated another 30 to 40 kilometers of tracks, set up a really robust camp setup. And then with the data in hand, we were able to identify multiple new exploration targets that were majority undrilled. We're also finding some new vectors into how to expand on those areas that were previously drilled to see if there's more to find there. Knowing that the historical drilling was rather limited, even where it was done, the average depth, if you took all the holes divided by the number of holes, it was 350, 380 meters average depth. It's really not much in this part of the world. So a lot of white space on the XY dimension in 2 dimensions. And then if you even go into the places that there was work in 3 dimensions, rather limited. So really, we found the project wide open, and then we've stepped forward gradually with systematic work to develop these targets.
Right. Okay. So you got a bit of data, limited data, a shallow data, and looking around you. That's not how they did it at all. So in terms of taking learnings from those who have, gone in front of you and been successful, how do you do this? I mean, how do you, like small company, you got to raise the money, you got to get deeper, you got to get into the drilling, you got to excite the market. Hear about the potential of what you've got. So where are you today, and how do you move forward?
That's a great question. Where we are today is that we've reached a point where we have, there's 2 kind of stories of where we are. Where we are in the land package we've had to date, and where we are in the new ground, which we've just optioned. Okay, so the land package to date, we've worked up something like 7 good exploration targets that warrant drilling already, and we're firming up the exact drill hole depth, design, locations for that drill campaign by using another round of surface trenching to firm those up. So that's where we are. They're drill ready. Basically, within a few weeks, we'll have the results that will firm those up completely and tell us these are the locations we're going to drill. In terms of how we've replicated what's been done at Filo and what's been done at NGEx, the tools they've used are, and I can name them, but essentially a geophysics tool that was very effective at Filo del Sol was MT geophysics. It sees very deep. It identifies conductive bodies, and those conductive bodies often correlate to bodies of like sulfides, basically. So we've used the MT geophysics survey quite effectively at our property and found multiple high tenor, large scale, anomalous conductive bodies that are not drilled. So those form the basis of the targets in 3D under the surface. And then you look at IP geophysics, which was also done. And in Filo, they did it over 20 years, patchwork, a little bit here, a little bit there, and it's actually ends up costing a lot more. What we did was, we took the best, in our opinion, IP technology from the best provider that's been very effective at Aldebaran's Altar project, at Atex's Valeriano project. We brought the same guys in, and we did IP comprehensively now also across the project. So IP brings you a different lens. It brings you the chargeability lens, and there's well-known kind of breakpoints in chargeability that correlate to sulfide or pyrite halos around porphyry deposits, and that also then adds another layer of data. The third tool I can tell you that Filo use, and they use a lot of tools obviously, is alteration analysis from satellite imagery, very detailed satellite imagery that has multiple spectra, shortwave, infrared. You're able to purchase that and process it to identify alteration assemblages, and that was one of the keys if you look at the technical presentations by Bob Carmichael or Wojtek just prior to their Hole 41 discovery. one of the tools they've used to vector in on where to drill was the Worldview 3 alteration analysis. Why is that important? Is this satellite imagery is able to identify pixel sizes of 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, whereas an Aster image, which is the open source satellite data, is like a meter. And so you're able to use this imagery, identify alteration that even the naked eye can't see. And on a project of the scale that we have or that Filo has, that's actually very important because it narrows down the search space to where you send your boots on the ground geologists. So they use that effectively. We also purchased imagery over our project from the same satellite provider and their project all the way up through to Los Helados and profiled the belt. So we're able to understand where all the areas of alunite are, kaolinite, all the alteration that corresponds to either porphyry or high sulfidation epithermal deposits, and then use that as a vector as well. So, and I can go through all of them. Geochemistry, we look at copper in soils. So really, we've looked at and extensively studied what has been done at the next door discoveries, and there have been papers written and geologists who have extensively worked there. We've engaged many of these geologists to come and work with us. We've engaged many of the expert geophysical providers to come and do the work on our property. And using these substantial data sets, now we've worked up targets that are compelling. And that's what has attracted investors to this project and makes this a good exploration story.
Right. See, basically, you've got lots of comps. You've got lots of people have spent a lot of money learning how to kind of get after this. But therein sort of maybe lies a rod for your own back in the sense that it's like having sort of sibling who's an A-grade student and you're coming up behind, and the expectations are high of you, right? So have coming back to this kind of various land packages that you've got, you're going to have to pick the best one first in terms of that prioritizing process. Where are you? Because then people will be expecting 500 meters plus, plus 0.6% copper equivalent. There's going to be targets in investors' minds before you've even announced anything. So,
yeah,
talk to me.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, that's a challenge, but let me reframe this. I look at this as there's a $4.5 billion copper discovery next door. Okay, that's slated to become a 20, 30, 40, who knows how many billions of dollars of capital expenditure is going to go in there, and then the revenue following that. It's going to last 100 years, maybe 200 years, who knows? We're not going to be around. We're next to it. We're on the same aged rocks. The alteration, the geochemical profile continues. So we have to be patient. And it's not about, first drill hole is going to make a massive discovery. We're actually next to probably potentially the biggest future copper mine in the world. We've locked up strategically over the last 2 years any open ground that was there, and now we've closed that with our most recent transaction. So yes, the expectations are high, to go back to your question, yes, that we'll make a big discovery. But like a little bit of a step back tells you this is going to be an important ground package. Systematically working it, patiently working it should yield results, and it has worked in the neighboring project. It's worked in Lunahuasi, at Los Helados. This is a very, very well endowed district, and we've got a large piece of it. So I would remind investors, and I do when I speak to them, is that this is a process. It's not a one-shot thing. And we don't have just one prospect, as you said. We've got multiple. And it's always the case, and if you speak to guys, like you mentioned Raymond Janis, I had him on the phone last week, and he was telling me he doesn't believe, maybe I shouldn't share his beliefs, but ranking prospects is not actually, you often find that the third or fourth ranked prospect on a exploration team's list is the one that becomes the discovery. And so, the reality of the ranking process is that you don't actually know that much prior to drilling a whole lot of holes into the guts of a system. So, yes, there is a process of prioritizing, but you'll be surprised at what ends up becoming a discovery.
No, I hear you. But you kind of, as I guess, a small company trying to go through the phases, get the market interested and sort of leaning in here. You've done the first bit, which is great, which is kind of pick up land package in the right part of the world, right?
Yeah.
But again, I just want to be clear with people about what your business plan is. If it's sitting around waiting for some big company with billions of dollars to spend on getting their own project going, if you're expecting them to kind of take you out, that's a waiting game, and you're sort of out of control there somewhat. do you try and make it appealing and sexy for someone else to kind of come in and do this for you? Do you, as explorers, currently try and work this up as far as you can work this thing up into, it's a relatively, strong metals market for you guys at the moment? How do you play this? Or are you just keeping your options open at the moment?
Well, it's good that you mentioned the strong metals market, because that's obviously a key component of strategy, right? When the market isn't rewarding the exploration work and you go out and blow your whole budget on the exploration work, even if you find something, and there's been many cases of that, nothing happens and your shareholders are not rewarded. So we're in the right environment now to go out and drill these targets, and it happens to be the best time for the company to do that as well. So we're very much intending to go and drill the best targets and make a discovery. So that's our short-term business plan. As far as medium and long-term business plan, Matt, those are subject to what we see in the drilling, and I know that's not very clear, but that's it. I mean, we're hoping to make a big discovery. Once we do, we'll have a valuable, deposit or the starts of a deposit to define further, and then we'll see how it unfolds from there, depending on what we've found. That's the
Okay, no, great. I like it's early days, but we ask these questions. I'm trying to more get an idea of what's in your head, and so
certainly it's not waiting; it's generating value, and that's what we've done so far. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Right. Because I just think that's a kind of sort of slightly terminal model when people talk to me about that. Good. Okay. So there's level of ambition and aggression there to kind of stay in control. I just finish off on that point about that kind of benchmarking thing, because again, you're going to have to say to the market, like, even if we only get half of what a Filo got or whatever, that still makes a good project for someone, very economic project for someone. So just managing that expectation is going to be important for you guys, I suspect.
And the benefit of the investors we have so far is they understand this is exploration. There are risks involved with exploration. Just because we're next to a big deposit, it's not a surefire thing. But there are also people who know that the value of something that we find is actually enhanced if there's a big mining camp here, right? So Jose Maria is building a big mine. Filo del Sol, it should emerge to become one. Lunahuasi, we'll see. And so now it's not, you're in the middle of the mountains in Argentina and Chile. What are you going to do even if you did find something? It's okay, this is going to be a big mining district, mining camp potentially. And so that's the part that I think our neighbors play in the story. Not so much that we're waiting to be taken out. We need to generate value, make a discovery, and find something. And I'm clear with investors about that as well. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I did have some questions around ranking targets and vectoring techniques and so forth, and maybe sort of getting into Meseta and Cumbre. But I think you've done a good enough job for the sake of this conversation, this early stage around that and some of the the geochem and mineralogy alteration type conversations. So I want to skip that and get into you briefly talked about the land packaging, and and that is a good part of the strategy in terms of tying that up. Is it possible to pick up more? Is part of your funding strategy linked to the ability to maybe spin out some of these, which may be attractive to other juniors, which may allow them to actually give you some money and just kind of keep, because I think that the hard bit at the moment is conventional financing seems to be in a very different place compared to say 5 years ago. So what are the kind of strategies that you're engaging to make sure that you're financed to do what you want to do and run at the pace you want to run at?
We're doing all the usual, but also trying to do our own twist, right? So all the big companies that matter in copper and also in gold, who are trying to get into copper, are speaking generally to any interesting project. That would include us. And so there's always the option of a strategic investment or like a part of the company. And we did have one mining company come in and take a share in us, and I think they'll continue to support us. So that's one component. The other component is, institutional funds who understand this and are willing to be supportive long term. And we've managed to attract a number of those to our shareholder base. So when it comes to long-term financing, you're looking for less, right? Normally a company would be out there with their hands out trying to find whatever, let's say 5 million. We've already spoken for a portion of that through our long-term supportive shareholders that have supported us through the process. So getting those in our corner has been important. We continue to engage with the large companies. And then I think there's something to be said for, you're right, the funding story has changed from 5 years to now. relying on investment banks or brokers or all of that isn't the winning formula now. It's more about establishing those relationships yourself with funders and their confidence in your project and your team. And we've been very, I would say that's my focus, and that's how we've been developing this project. So putting that together myself and engaging with those conversations myself has been very important. And obviously we're listed, so raising the profile of the company is something I spend a lot of time doing, and that does bring inbound interest, which we see quite regularly after press releases, and that's also an avenue. So we've been blessed so far that we have an interesting project, and people with technical understanding of where we are and what we're looking for have been attracted to it. The next stage for us is that as we find more and more able to broaden the base of people who are aware of the company, since we're a newly listed company, and I think that will yield results and help us to continue long term.
Companies like to come on here and talk about catalyst moments, right? And I'm not really a kind of believer of one big thing changing anyone's fortune. It's a rare thing. It does. Okay, there'll be a handful of examples I could give, but it's a rare thing. So this land package tenure where you are, I get it. The kind of surface work that whether it be the geochem or mineralogy or in the 3D geophysics stuff that you're doing, it's a start. But most retail investors, which is kind of the world that I think you're operating in at the moment, for now, a bit bored by that. Don't understand it. Don't care. Is show me the drilling, right? So moving to that next section, that will move the needle for their understanding and possibly the needle for you in terms of share price movement. So how far away are we from doing a serious drill campaign?
We're still in the work season, so we're up in April now. We probably will close in May or late April. We're in a place where it's quite expensive to mobilize a drill campaign, so the best thing to do is to try and get the meterage up to reduce the overall cost per meter. Okay, so the consideration here is best use of funds to reduce the cost per meter, improve the discovery odds on less budget. So we've had a rig on standby ready to go pretty much the whole season, but we've been waiting and hoping to get the geophysical data from the Meseta and Cumbre prospects in, which is already starting to flow. They've been on the ground now about a week. So long story short, it seems like we're going to be designing a drill program that will start in October this year and actually fulsomely test all of our best targets with the benefit of having the data that we need to make the best decisions. And so we're very confident now in a number of those targets. We're going to see some results from the work that we've been doing to firm them up in the coming week, probably day. And so in the short term, we're seeing the results from that work firming up these targets, which are some of them quite juicy. And then we'll see the results from the geophysics and the new ground that we have. And that's going to be very interesting as well. For a number of reasons. One is it's in the right aged belt, but we're seeing very interesting patterns there at the surface and in the geophysics already from the interim work that's come through. So that's in itself an interesting thing for an early stage company. I would say even considered potentially material when you look at when the data comes through. So we really got to get that data out and you'll see it. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the setting up between now and October is going to be important in terms of whether that be, preparing, drill pad access or, slope stability and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll start to see you, talking about that sort of preparation work ready for the drilling. But to do that, you're going to need to get on with the process of actually sort of identifying the where, the how many, and how deep, and all of that. So when do you think you'll be in that modelling stage?
Very soon. Okay. And that's the idea. Look, we still even could technically get a rig up, but what's looking like it's more likely is that we interpret all the geophysical information that's come through. They remodel it, so we're using the same company. So they remodel even the existing information we have. At the end of line would change with the additional geophysical lines going west into the new ground. So all the data gets remodeled, and then all the surface geochemical assays, which we've collected thousands of samples now this season from the Argentina side and the Chilean side, gets remodeled. There's a bunch of modeling we do as well, geochemical 3D modeling. We're going to get all of that in and load all the data in 3D, and basically in May we should be seeing the targets, the planned drill holes, and what we're going to do next in a very concrete terms, which targets are going to be drilled, when, and so on. and design a patrol program that basically hits these targets and hits them hard. So yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. Okay, well, we'll step away, but we haven't got too technical today at all.
But
so
in terms of
nice,
road,
right?
yeah.
But okay, and I kind of want to move on because I kind of like the understanding the business plan and the strategy and so forth. And financing is the other part of that because like I say, I can drill down technically, but I don't think we're kind of going to get too far. You still got a little bit of work to do, a bit of planning to do. Let's talk about the institutional component of the kind of share register at the moment because it's pretty impressive for a company of your size. What were their expectations? What are your expectations of them kind of going forward? If we can kind of get into that.
Yeah. Well, my expectations I kind of outlined before is that we have supportive shareholders in our corner who understand the process of exploration and discovery. Knowing that if we find something, as you said, even half the size of Filo, this could be substantial, something that's valued, $2-3 billion. We're at $33 million, so that's between 33 and 3,000, it's 100x. It's good returns, but it doesn't come without risk. So to mitigate the risk, we take a process of systematically working the project forward, and it does take time. We've taken that time, and now we're at the best place I think this project has ever been in its history in terms of worked up exploration targets that are ready to drill, that look really great from an explorationist perspective. So my expectations of shareholders, institutional-wise, is that, and my conversations with them have been, this is the plan, very open. This is what we're trying to accomplish. This is what we're going to do this season, and supportive when it's time for financing. Supportive and follow on with what they're doing. Their expectations are mixed. I would say it's a mixed bag, Matt. Some of them want the quick win, and that's fair. That's what you want. But a lot of them are actually supportive, long-term holders, and they'll be with us. They'll be in our corner, and they understand it's a process. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think one of the things we're sort of seeing is coming back to this, how do companies get funded going forward? We're seeing $100 million companies with perhaps, a big PFS, looking towards some of the green metals like the copper, right? Canadian companies getting funded out of Germany, for instance, on their copper component of their story because that's what people want access to. I mean, it's you may think, well, it's a long kind of lead time, but it is what it is. So smaller funds like Crux maybe want a quick win, but there'll be kind of other funds who perhaps are in this for the long game because of the metal that you've chosen, right? So I guess I'm wondering, do you look to them to the different type of funding which these sorts of companies will need going forward? And if so, I'm really sort of keen to understand what their kind of long game is. Is it just about copper, the metal, or is it about the district that you're operating in? Is it something else? What have they bought into?
That's a good question.
Such a small company, right?
Right. Well, I'll break this into a couple of pieces. A lot of money has come into our company because they've seen success at Filo del Sol, at Lunahuasi, even at Jose Maria. And this is a great place to be exploring. You guys have actually locked up a significant portion of this district. We'll have a technical review. They organize a technical review expecting to find that it moves faster. They finish the conversation. They're like, okay, this actually all stacks up pretty well. How come Lundin doesn't have it? That's always the natural question. Look, this stuff happens, and it happens a lot in exploration. So then they're involved. So I would say they've seen success in the district, and they roll their money into us. That's a portion. Another portion is people who we have relationships with who know that we operate with integrity and we do things probably what they think is the right way, which or they've have a relationship with me or any of the board members, particularly with Steven Nano. Steven tends to be very detail-oriented, methodical, and people who like his technical approach will follow him and have appreciated what he's done over the years. That would be another portion of people. They're backing the team plus location. Obviously, if we were in the middle of nowhere, it'd be a different story. And then there's the thematic investors. Now, thematic investors, I haven't seen so much of that. We're looking for copper. This is a copper, let's invest in this. Because we're exploration stage and we're not sitting on a PFS or any kind of defined resource, that's not the kind of interest we're getting. We are getting kind of discovery-focused people who want to see an exploration hit, and they're exploration investors, people like Lowell Resources, John Forward out of Melbourne, very good eye for good exploration stories, and so I would say that probably is getting involved to see if there's a discovery. Rather than a thematic wave. I haven't seen, and I'm not a stock analyst, but I haven't seen the metal prices really affect the equities yet. So I know at some point in history, yeah.
Well, not the exploration's end, no, for sure. It's hard, and that's why I'm digging and rooting around here, because I think there's a lot of exploration stories out there, and I think if you're outside of gold, silver, copper, and possibly even uranium, no one's listening too hard or intently at Explore Codes. But if you are, as you are, in that space, I think there's a sort of slightly bigger audience. But what you need to do, and I think what you have done today, is differentiate itself, not just because of the metal and because of the location, but because of the way you're thinking about advancing this, way you're thinking about developing this. Money, you've got money. That's another differentiator as well in a market. You can move at your own pace as well. So maybe think about how you think about the money conservation or even money allocation. Because I say, for me, efficiency of allocation is tantamount is critical. And at the same time, I do want you to grow the company. You got to move it along. So how do you approach that?
I think, not tooting my own horn here, but I think we've done a pretty good job considering cost to discovery at peer companies and the general performance of the sector. I don't want to point any, but we've taken most of the money directly into the ground. Really, the majority. I would say, I would have to check the financials, but definitely more than 80%. Okay, even my time, I spend a fair bit of my time looking at data and helping with the exploration process. Notwithstanding, I'm not a geologist, but I'm in the weeds there pretty much every day. So we don't carry a big G&A spend. A lot of the money is going into the ground. And the way I think about it is the drill campaigns here are quite expensive. And the science that develops a target up is where you want to be spending. You get the most bang for your buck doing what we're doing now. Like the work that we've done in the last 2 years, and particularly this season, has been very cost-effective work. For instance, rather than going and drilling our Argentina targets straight off the bat, we were able to take the approach of doing long trenches over the top of these multi-kilometer targets, generate as much surface data as possible. We're paying, rather than paying $1,000 a meter, so $1 million a drill hole into these targets, we're paying 10 grand for a 500-meter trench to get it's like a horizontal drill hole, right? So this is the luxury you don't have of doing if you're a junior who's under the pump to go and drill, make a discovery straight away. Rather, we went and had the conversation with our shareholders and with our team and said, these targets would have a much less risky and much more effective drill campaign if we were able to trench over the top of them, work them up, look at the geochemistry, look at the geology of these trenches, and design the drill hole after that. One of the targets, for example, Rincon, is 4 kilometers north-south. You do have geophysics to help you, but I mean, for those under the impression that this is an exact thing, exact science, it's really not. There's a lot of real guesswork and art to it as well. So the more data you get, the better. And we strike that balance between, we're not sitting on our hands. We're advancing the prospects pretty aggressively. But where it's required, we're going to do low-cost work like trenching, which is 100 times cheaper and gives us high data density over drilling. But at a holistic level, stepping back, the company directs most of the money by far directly into exploration. Where it's not exploration, it's me signing an option deal to get more ground, which is highly prospective, and adding it to the land package. That's basically it. And there has to be an allocation to promotion and to advertising. Because without that, as you said, it's a noisy space. There's thousands of companies. We're a newly listed company. We need to raise awareness. That reduces our cost of capital. So, some people see me on the media. I see comments you're doing a lot of interviews or whatever. Of course, I'm doing interviews. Like the job is get the word out there. We've got a great company, but if no one knows about it, nothing's going to happen, right? So, it's a two-pronged job here. We spend our money very effectively generating good exploration data. And I also look for the highest ROI places to get the word out about the company, which is here.
It is. You're correct. Well, look, Alan, I think it's a nice introduction to this. I've enjoyed this session. Look, if you come back on, maybe let's get into the weeds on some of the targets that you're talking about, the kind of the rincons.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we good. So look, appreciate your time today. Stay in touch and let us know how you get on. Okay.
Thank you so much, Matt. Take care.